And you're right. You can like moan and, no, I don't want to do that and I'm going to make a stand. Great. You can make the stand, but be prepared that,
For sure.
you probably won't be booked as much.
The dancer died twice, and tonight we're gonna chalk them out. It's the podcast that talks about what dancers shouldn't talk about. We had those conversations, yeah, we're here to light the fire. The dancer dies twice.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Dancer Dies Twice. It's the podcast where we as professional dancers can gather and start talking about things that we don't generally get to share within our everyday world. We like to explore the spaces of artistry, get to know the stories behind the curtains of dancers' lives, and touch upon areas that can be a little bit uncomfortable. And that is in reference to the retirement of our early performing days. Well, for some anyways. Today's guest, I've got someone special, she's very super talented, a jack of all trades. It's interesting how we have kind of connected in this space because we've done a bit of a 360, a full circle. I think in the early years, I taught her. We came from the same high school. And then in later years, she was actually a choreographer on the show that I was on. And now we're here doing a pod. So this is kind of really interesting and awesome. And I think that's the beauty about being, in this space as working professionals. You get to sort of get the privilege to be able to, I guess, step into a lot of different roles and see familiar faces and come to like a 360 like this. So anyways, I'm going to stop jibber jabbing here and I'm going to introduce Anna Johnston, and welcome to the pod. Thank you so much for coming on. It's a privilege. I got to see you read a little bit about, your I guess, your bit of your professional background. I went, wow, what a colorful, enriched, full, I would say, experience of, I guess, a dancer, which is now, choreography. So all I want to say is thank you so much for coming on board.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
So I think I don't want to speak for you and put the words in your mouth, but would you just be able to just enlighten us a little bit of your professional background, a little bit what you do, and then if you don't mind, maybe just share with us a little bit on, I guess, how you came to be doing what you're doing. I know that's a very broad question, but I always love to get to know the reasons of why people decided to dance, what made them, get into it in the first place. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I started dancing when I was 5. Before I even got put into a studio, I'm the eldest of 5 and I was so active, and all I did from what my parents said was I just danced everywhere. No matter what, I always was dancing. And so they put me in a studio, and literally as soon as I started, I knew that this was exactly what I wanted to do. I never felt I don't know, when kids think of I really want to do this, or I'm not really sure what I want to do in life. And then until they get to high school or graduate and they're still figuring it out. Literally when I started, I knew this was what I was going to do, to a point that I started grabbing all the kids in the street and teaching them routines, and we put on little Christmas shows. It then got to a point where when I traveled back overseas to my family in the Philippines, as I was born in the Philippines and I'd go and visit, I started to teach all the kids over there. And this is probably, 8, 9-year-old Anna. Then it got to a point where I didn't have the best or most supportive upbringing when it came to dance. My mum was a solo mum. My dad was around, but I lived with my mum, and when she was raising 4 kids, it got to a point where she couldn't support my dancing. And so at the age of, it was 12, I had to quit, or 11, 12. I was so extremely heartbroken that I ended up getting on the computer, typing up a little poster and putting flyers in people's letterboxes to see if any kids wanted to learn how to dance for free. And I did that for 3 years. So from the age, 11, 12, 13, I taught for free for 3 years in my mum's garage. I put on a concert. I even put on little musicals. Like from such a young age, I just was directing and choreographing and organizing. And it was crazy because no one showed me. No one taught me. My mum was literally like, okay, I'll drive my car out of the garage so you can dance. My mum was not that she wasn't supportive. She just didn't understand it. Mm-hmm. And then finally I was like, I need to get back into this. And so my dad got me back into dance. By that stage, I felt like, you lost 3 years of dancing at a dance school, which I could see that. I could see that in myself when I went back, technique wise, but I was so hungry for it because as much as I loved the dance school that I was at the time, one of my dance teachers had told me that I would never be able to dance professionally. She just said, you're just too short and you don't have the body. And you just will not make it professionally. And as much as that broke me, it was the best fire anyone could have given me at 14, 15.
Wow.
Because I was like, you can't tell me that I'm not going to do this because this is all I ever want to do. And I think from that fire, I got back into dance and trained. And at our high school, we have a dance program. I even found a few people that stayed after school to train with me and then went straight into full time. And I literally had tunnel vision. As soon as I finished school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I said, I only want to do a year of full time. I wasn't going to do 2 years. And I'd never had such strong tunnel vision. Which I am so grateful for because as soon as I was done graduating, they were offering a 1 year full-time contract to work with the dance company, like teaching, touring, and performing. And I remember sitting in that meeting at the end of year 12, going into this audition with the owners and saying, I'm going to get that contract. And they said, everyone else has said that to us too. And I said to them, no. I'm going to get this contract. Mm-hmm. And I've always been like that. Like if I have something that I want to get, I don't you could tell me I'm not going to get it, but I'm like, no, if you really want something, and I had to work hard, on this podcast, you won't see a photo or a video of me. I'm a short, small girl. I'm a short, strong, stocky girl. And so, yes, I had to fight. My training. I had to train to dance 10 times bigger than the girl that was next to me. It was so much harder because I would always kind of get looked over when most auditions are like, there's a certain height or a certain look. And again, I didn't realize as I got older, that depends on the certain jobs you want to go for too. It's not like one size fits all, right? And so the more that I had to be like, okay, what is my superpower? How can I stand out? So when I was doing training, I had to look at all the other people and say, okay, if I'm going to auditions and this is what I'm seeing, this is what everyone's training for, how can I get my special X factor, or how can I get my superpower to stand out? And so I started to strategically shift that. Instead of being like, I have to be like this, how can I use my magic to stand out? So that's why I started to train. Okay, let me get more styles under my belt. Let me see, if someone taught us, I understand in an audition or a show or whatnot, if they taught you a certain way, but they said, okay, here's a little area where you can do your own kind of freestyle or you can stand out here. I always strategically looked around to see, okay, if people were maybe going down to the ground, well, I'm going to stay standing up so people can see me. Or if people majority are going to stay up and do tricks, how can I do something that's different to the ground that's eye-catching? I know that people only looked at you within seconds. So that's why I was like, I had to really look at it as a plan to more than just I want the job. I had to think even further, strategically.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, could you just my audio
Yeah.
thing just cut out there? I was with you. I had to fix that
Yep.
my audio. You said when it came to auditions, you had to be strategic. But what was it that you were looking
Hmm.
out for? Was it just like you would be like, this person's good at doing that, that person's good at doing this? Let me try and figure out if
Yep.
there's something that I can add that is my own thing. Is that
Yep.
what you mean? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I I am not the most flexible person, so I had to work on my pickup technique, which
Mm-hmm.
I am very proud to say that my pickup has immensely grown because that had to be my superpower. So in an audition,
Okay. Yeah.
my first thing was like pick up quick,
Right.
make it your skeleton, and then decorate the crap out of it, you know?
Gotcha.
Instead of being like, okay, I'm going to rely on my legs and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
My strategy was pick it up as quick as you can and
Mm-hmm.
use your face and your performance,
Gotcha.
because most of the time it would be, step, kick, step, turn. So I had to be very, like I said, strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
And it also depends
Yeah.
on the groups that I was in as well. I mean, depending on what group. If you knew someone was in your group doing something, I had to plan. There was more to it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm like every time I have these kind of conversations, I get to know people more of like how they came about. I get super inspired, like because your story, the story that you just told me, like genuine, like just goosebumps, man. Like hearing the struggles that you went through, and just it's not even like it was like almost like you knew from a very young age, and doing things like that, like putting up these little
Yeah.
musicals and things like that, handing out flyers, like geez, like yeah, it's I feel like it's really inbuilt in you. And
Yes.
I think I'm just going to kind of work back from hearing your story, because
Yep. Yep. Yeah. No, that's totally fine.
there's actually so much to I feel like we could cover. But I think what stood out
Yeah.
was, yeah, I think you had a very strong knowing when it came to for doing what you wanted to do, and it's interesting because I think you would be the complete opposite of, I guess, someone like myself. And I find it so interesting where you can have, someone like yourself walking your path and becoming very successful with dance. And then, for me, for instance, I didn't know that I never wanted to be a dancer. And it just happened for me. And Madonna, Miss Hall, man, oh, bro, like I have so much to
Yeah.
thank her for. I
Yeah.
graduated high school.
Me too.
She just
Me
goes,
too.
she just goes, Chris, there's this audition for a full time. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
I always loved dance, and I was like never serious, but I was like, I was enrolled for something else, and I was like, why not? Let's try it, and the rest is,
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's crazy that like you can have such different ways of going about it, and I think that's kind of really important as well, because I think some people might feel like I have to know certain things, I have to be able to do it, but then yeah, someone like me, it was completely different, and I think it's there's a lot in between all of that. But I think what another thing that stood out was just how you just kept going forward, and hearing people like your teacher say things like that to you normally will end up crushing someone, and they can be like, all right, well, that's it, kind of thing. But you've got this knowing that is so deep inside of you, and you didn't let anyone else dictate and make decisions for you. Instead, it worked around the other way, where it fueled you. And I totally get what you mean by that, because when people start doubting me on stuff, like it's kind of like I've got something that I got something to prove, or I've got something to work towards, and so I think that's like hats off to you to be able to keep going through that. I think a lot of kids, man, these days that I've noticed, and you probably noticed this as well, is that they don't have the right people to be able to I guess, guide them into the right direction. Maybe, you know,
Yeah.
they just have they have people in their area from very limited, I guess, experiences, and it's a shame to be able to see, you know, them sort of not even have the opportunity to start a career, even give it a go. I just see a lot of kids just sort of say that they're not good enough, or they just, you know, they just don't have that confidence. And, you know, with you're so sure about it, and so I think that's so awesome that you kept pushing through, and then touching base upon the whole your whole look thing and where you stand in the marketplace of it all. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Like, you don't realize that, you don't figure it out until a bit later. And you're right, it's and when you're looking at the Australian market as well, where that is completely different from when you go to America, Europe. And so a lot of the times when you're getting this feedback at that young age, you're getting feedback from people who like are unaware of all of this stuff. And like, because when you said your height and all that, and I'm thinking, are you really that short? And in my head, I'm thinking a lot of female dancers that I'm working with, a lot of them are short. Like, the tall ones generally do contracts, like, you know, sometimes cruise ships, Moulin Rouge and stuff. But, like, you know, for the most part, a lot of us, like, I want to say commercial dancers, we're power rockets, you know, pocket rockets, and typically shorter. So it's so, like, could you imagine, like, if you took on that, like, you know, advice, and then you didn't continue on to where you are now, man. So that's like really, really
absolutely
inspirational, and it's just amazing that you've just gone, nah, this is what feels right for me. This is what's good, and I'm going to keep going through with it. So, So when it comes to auditions, I know I totally understand what you mean by, you know, working with, I guess, your strengths or your differences, your point of difference, and all of that. At what point did you realize that there is a kind of a game to this? It's a bit of a, you know, how you said you have to become strategic.
Yeah.
Did you just kind of fall in that space because you were like, well, I am different, or I do look different, or like, have you always been aware that there is a business end to dancing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a point where I was just auditioning, and I knew it was while I was training, I looked young. I looked like a baby. My height wasn't in my favor either. And so, but they were experiences anyway. And then it got to a point where I was auditioning for things that I was, if anything, heartbroken when I didn't get it. Like, you know, when you really want a job, like there's auditions you go for, but then there's ones that you are like, I'm ruined if I don't get this, you know. We all have those. And that's a whole even thing to, like, I teach at enough full-time courses that I'm like, I don't think we talk enough openly about how to recover from setbacks or no's. Like some people really go into a spiral, and they, you know, and then that's where they second guess if this is the career that they want. And sometimes, I feel like there's not enough of that support in a full-time course to help work through that. Because but that's a whole other thing, but that's a whole other story I want to go into. But, I'm ranting now. But it got to a point where, there was a job that I really wanted, and I had, one of my mentor teachers that was kind of working on the audition. She wasn't on the panel, but she was kind of calling numbers and coming in, and every time I was out, she's like, I just need you to like relax and loosen up. Like, she was in my corner, but she was like, you just are not letting go. Like, she's like, I know there's so much more in you, and I just feel like you need to she's like, can you take your ponytail out and just let your hair out? Like, she's like, where is that fire in you? And I'd never ever had anyone say that to me in the middle of an audition that was in my corner. And I was like, I am, like, I'm having so much fun. I promise, like, I really am. And I didn't end up getting it, and it ruined me. And then it got to a point where I'm like, maybe I think I'm doing that thing, but maybe I need to externally pull myself out of my body, kind of like that Mr. Strange, Doctor Strange from Marvel, and pull myself out of my body and look at myself from another angle and say, hang on, let's look at this. Like, if she was saying something, she really probably means something because she's in that audition room. So I kind of took it back to the drawing board or the studio and said, okay, let me train in different styles and get uncomfortable and do things where I'm like, okay, let me see where I think I'm really good. And this is where I think iPhones were just coming out, and I was filming my stuff to actually watch my stuff to be like, okay, do I look like probably everybody else when I did maybe learnt this routine? And I looked at it and was like, yes, I do. And I said, okay, well, let's do something about that. Let's stand out. Like, what can you do? So if you were in a class, let's say, even if you were practicing in a class of, 10 or 15 people, how can you stand out in that video of 15 people? And so they were my baby steps of looking at myself, like really refining it, because I knew I didn't have anyone holding my hand and really, you've got people around, but you don't physically have someone that's holding your hand after you graduate full time, right? No. You're kind of let free into the world and you're like, go on, go get a job.
Yeah.
Go get this audition, do this audition, just keep auditioning. There's no support there.
Look, I think what you were saying before about the whole, yeah, you're right. There's no support, and when you're in the audition, it's a completely different beast to as when you are taking class or when you're going through full time, and when you're in that room, I don't know if you can agree on this, but like I'm a when I go take class to when I'm auditioning, I'm a different beast.
Different. Yes. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
And that's the thing that, like, I think dancers can get trapped in the training mindset. And it's like, you're dancing and yes, you are kind of performing, but when it's like an audition, it's like, man, it's cutthroat. It's all or nothing.
The nerves take over. It is cutthroat.
Yeah, you like, but where can you ever learn to tap in and that fire, that you're talking about? Like, where does that come from? Like, and do you think, and this is kind of going back to hearing your story, right? It almost sounds as if though look, I got to be careful what I say here, and this is something that I've actually really been thinking about. But do you feel like it's a genetic versus nature versus nurture thing? Because when I hear your story, I go, you were born for this. You were born to do this, right? It's like I don't think I think there's something just naturally in inside of you that is excelled to do this stuff, right? Do you think if someone doesn't necessarily have that natural, I guess, I don't want to call it X factor, that ability to perform and put on a show, whatever that thing is, do you think that can be taught?
Yes and no. I say this because you could have the perfect body, and let's say I'm going to really typically go to cruise ship situation, right? You could have the perfect height, body, and if you can do the lines, but you don't have that X factor, not saying I am not undermining any job right now. It's very easy for that person without that X factor to slip into a job like that if you're like a chorus dancer.
I see.
And they may not have an X factor, but you can have someone that may be extremely tall or much shorter, or they just have a buzz cut that has the X factor, but it doesn't look or sit well within. But they would be so much more entertaining to watch as a solo dance, or that dance would be so much more entertaining to watch over the bulk chorus dancers. And I don't think you can really teach that. You can learn it slowly, but I don't think you either like have it. You're like hungry and you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a yes and no with that. And that's only me because I've taught at enough full-time courses that I may have seen someone do many jobs over, you know, a 6 to 10 year period. And I'm like, oh, it's finally there because of their experiences. Right. But then, yeah.
It's really tricky. I've thought about this a lot, and because I know that there are some people, I love to think, you know, I do think hard work sees itself through. When you put a lot of hard work into it, like something is bound to come about it. But then when you look at like, you know, sport, you know, athletes, you know, at the highest level, and they even talk about it as well, raw talent, you know what I mean? Talent versus hard work. Like some things, like some people just have that flair, you know what I mean? And do you think maybe when you go through training and when you go through full-time and all of that, I can only speak from my personal experience, and sort of when I do see students coming up, is that I think there's a lot of focus in, you know, trying to get the steps right, and that ability to be able to perform that artistry of expressing your artistic nature and being able to communicate that through whatever that medium is. For us, it's movement, dance, right? For people to be able to feel that and see that and connect, I think that's what the separation is a little bit when we're just looking at the, you know, that performance side of things. And sometimes I think, is there other ways of being able to harness this, or allowing dancers to be able to sort of tap into this to bring life to what it is? And maybe they're kind of looking about it from a different angle. Maybe it's about, I don't know, maybe it's about like for a guy, it might be, this is a bad example, but maybe getting into the boxing ring and then doing a sparring match with someone and tapping into that, I don't know, like primal kind of energy or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be about like, I don't know, expressing through doing some art. I don't know, to be able to tap into that. Is that what it is? Is that what it is? Or am I kind of off the mark here?
No. I think it is. It's got to do with your confidence. And that is something that is lacking in so many dancers. And I think social media has had a huge impact. I feel like the way I trained, I am grateful there were no video phones and iPhones and recording when I was training, because I reckon that would have really changed the way and the person I am today. Because it's very easy to post a class footage, because if you don't really feel the best, but you do it, and you're used to getting, I don't know, it's crazy how some kids get 1,000 likes and comments so quickly.
Yeah.
It's that straight away, you know, like, I don't know.
I think you're right.
I've had this with it is for me, I just feel,
no, it so is.
Females especially, and this is me talking on behalf of females, it's the confidence I see lack in most of them. And it's really hard, because sometimes I'm like, if you can just not care and just be you and go 100% and not worry about what anyone else is thinking or what they say about you, but it's always got to do with what your phone or what someone may be messaging or being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this and whatnot. And that is a huge thing I reckon it's affecting this new generation of elite dancers. And I think you're more likely to see the elite dancers because they're the ones that have the confidence and actually don't give a crap at what people see, and that are willing to climb out of that hole when everyone else is really stuck in that hole.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm going through that myself. And you saying that, it kind of just, it makes me realize that. And then I'm like, oh no, there is a big chunk of my confidence that is missing and it's becoming lacking, because I am watching a lot of these new dancers online and seeing them just crush it in that space. That's something that is unfamiliar territory for me. And now when I go take class, I get such crazy anxiety. Just the fact that I know that there's going to be a filming element to it. I can't do the thing that I normally do. And so I think I still feel confident now in auditions because I know it's not kind of being put out there for social media. But I think if it were to be, I think I'm like, I would have to, I need to figure out that beast. I got to figure that out. And man, it makes sense now. Yeah. Why kids do feel like that a lot more these days, man. It's really shameful. Is there, do you think there's a way around it? I mean, I'm still figuring it out. So I'm learning right now when I ask you this question.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, from what I've seen, there are a lot of full-time schools, but even I've seen dance schools start implementing like, not just meditation, but just classes where they're talking, like someone comes in to talk to them about their goals and what they like about themselves. And I think those classes are very important now, especially in the era that it seems like everyone's got like anxiety or someone's taking some kind of, like they're stressed and whatnot. Especially with kids that are so young, I'm like, wow, why is this happening so quickly or so early in their stage of growth? And so, I look, honestly, I'm still figuring that out too because I'm constantly mentoring the next generation of dancers, which I love so much. So all I try to do is, as much as I can think of, is we have check-ins. There are days where, you're at full-time or dance and you're not feeling it, but you're there. And I said, celebrate that you've just walked through the door, that you're here just dancing. There are some lessons where I go, before we walk out, I want you to tell me one thing that you're proud of today. It could be just getting out of bed. I don't want to put those words in their mouths, but I go, let's go around in a circle. And some of them are like, I literally made a great lunch for today. Or today I finally feel like I just picked up the choreography, And so everyone's is different. And that's why there's moments where I'm like, wow, you really don't know what they're going through. Because back in the day, it was kind of like no one really asked how you were. It was like, get in the door, like shut up, get in, do your stuff and get out. And I even think about now, if someone was to treat me, let's say someone was super strict, almost like army style, how I would have ended up, or if I had someone that was a complete mentor that was really nurturing, how would I be as well? And to be honest, I got probably a little bit of both, if not probably less of the nurture and pretty much like, if you want it, you've got to fight, not fight for it, but you've got to get yourself up. Like, this goes back to me growing up. We lived close enough to the dance school, but my mum would never drop me at the dance school. So I was at the dance school 4 times a week. I had to ride my bike. That was riding home at like 9 o'clock at night. That was also getting to the studio at 7 in the morning on a Saturday. From the age of 10, my mum stopped coming to Stedfords with me. So she would drop me, or I'd have to sort out a parent to take me. I had to pack all my costumes, do my makeup and sort myself out. And so it was, for me, my upbringing with dance was a lot of tough love. I am grateful for everything that happened to me, but there was a lot of tough love. Like, there was a lot of do it yourself or figure it out yourself.
For sure.
And so I feel like maybe the kids, if the kids get given everything, like, let's film this one student for their studio because they're obsessed with them, so they keep getting posted and they're always getting picked for things. Maybe that doesn't turn them into that professional and they think everything's going to be handed to them.
Yes. No, I'm so with you. It's like we're now naturally geared to go for that instant gratification of that dopamine hit, that grab and that quick thing that's like, yeah, is that actually going to make you successful in the long run? Like, I know freaking so many successful dancers today in the game right now, crushing it, major production after major production after major production. Their social media following is not large being under 5K.
Yeah.
Maybe even under 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're current.
Yeah.
they're current right now within the game and they're
Yeah.
constantly being booked. It's like, so what does that like? What does that mean? It's like, are we giving too much? Are these students, because they don't really know, right? All they can see is this world within itself. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be taking a look into it, because I think it's still evolving and it's very much a thing right now. And you know, I think harnessing that beast as well to be able to execute the choreography in such a small amount of time and having it like in a performance state in front of camera. Geez, man, like I keep talking about this, but we used to do that in a week span for X Factor, and it was live. Now it's condensed into like a tiny, like what, 45-minute class or whatever, an hour class or something. And I go, whoa, okay, I need to learn how to be able to do what I used to be able to do in a week in that short amount of time. But I think there's value. There's definitely so much like skill sets that they can pick up from it. But I think it's that other part to it, isn't it? Where you feel, man, like I'm not good enough because I didn't get picked out and all that kind of stuff. And that's just, I feel like it's freaking amplified. And yeah, man, I'm going through that myself, but it's awesome that we have people like yourself mentoring these kids, and you are aware of that, and you understand that space, and yeah, I think what you said made a lot of sense too. Is the discipline side of things, or like the long term things, and focusing on these other building blocks behind the scenes, you know what I mean? That sort of like establish becoming I guess a successful professional. So I feel like we could talk about this space a lot, but maybe you coming into this I guess the actual industry space. You know, I think you've already touched base a little bit upon sort of, you know, the demand of things. Australia is very different. You know, sometimes depending on the job, you've got to be a particular way. You have pointed out some challenges that you went through, but it seems like that you've constantly just always figured out solutions to it. You know, adapting to it, adapting to it, and things like that.
Yeah.
And you know, you and I'm not sure if you're still have been going to the meetings, but you know, we're both
The meetup. Yep.
the meetup for Dancers Australia, which I think is fantastic, by the way.
Australia,
We you know, there's a body of people that are actually now looking into a lot of these issues, and it's about time. Like, thank God that you know,
yeah, absolutely,
we're talking about it, and
yes.
So I guess maybe would you mind just filling me in a little bit more about, I guess, what is happening in that space right now, and maybe I think let's start talking about what is lacking and what needs to sort of, I guess, be changed, and just everything in between.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
So in regards to Dancers Australia, we've just had our first meeting of the year to start to just kind of talk about how last year, all our meetings, all our feedback, everyone on board, and we're just planning this year's what the next plan of attack for certain things, new social media, like lives and whatnot, and what the next topics are. But that's still planning for this year. So that's still going. The team's still small, but we have a team. So that's the most amazing thing, that there's something starting there, right? And supporting the dancers. In regards to, what was your other question? The demand of.
It's just talking. It's just looking at the actual Australian industry itself, the market itself.
Oh,
when it comes to like supply and demand of dancers, and I guess you know, I think one area I can think of is like you know, like plus size dancers, for instance, there's
Yeah.
like, I don't see any opportunity at all happening in Australia.
Mm,
America is changing and things like that. There's a bit more diversity going on there, which is cool.
mm,
And I think it's just about sort of like talking about what it is, like what our Australian dance industry, what that demand is, and how to navigate yourself through it.
mm,
Do you become what the
mm.
industry is asking of you to do? I don't know. Do you try to seek work elsewhere? Do you fight out against it? Like, what are your thoughts on when you feel like you're not
Yeah.
really fitting into it, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely I'm always in all those dancers or performers corners. I feel like I'm always with the underdogs because I've always been an underdog. So those are usually the dancers I look out for anyway on any job and whatnot. In regards to that, I think it really depends on where you're looking at, because probably in the commercial industry in Australia, yes, you probably don't see plus size dancers. But if you're looking around at other shows and let's say in the LGBTQ community or let's say, drag queens and drag brunches and drag bingos have really blown up, and they've always got backup dancers. They're always like, not always, but plus size or different looks. And if anything, those like, I'm sure like Mardi Gras and everything, they were all different body types. So I think if you're looking at the commercial world, industry in Australia, yes, you don't really see much of a, but like you may see, a one-off, someone of color, or maybe they have a crazy colored hair, I'm not sure, but that's very uncommon, right? Still in Australia. But with other shows that I've seen, and I'm talking about, let's say some plays or anything with, drama with a bit of movement and whatnot, I've seen a lot of diversity in sizes and looks and cultures. So I think, yeah, if you are tunnel vision and only looking at the commercial world, that's, yes, what you'll see.
Yeah.
But I think outside, if you were to look deeper, there are a lot that are giving opportunities. You just have to find those areas too, or look into or get a part of that community.
Yeah. Do you feel that it's still, I feel like you and I can both agree that it's not like dancing alone isn't it's not the most sustainable lifestyle. Having to always go from gig to gig, you know what I mean? And you, like, what would you say is like the best way for us dancers to be able to go through a lot of these uncertainties? And if you already are kind of maybe a bit more in the minority, does it mean it's about exploring different avenues of dance? Like, like for you, it sounds like you've always been driven and to choreograph and stuff, and that's so awesome and amazing, and I wish I had a little bit more of that. But I've always felt like if I had more skills outside of just me dancing, it would make life so much easier. You know what I mean? Is it?
I absolutely agree. No, go. You finish.
I was just saying, like, are we committed as dancers? Like, because the thing is, when you're in full time, you have no idea what, right? And then once you graduate full time, you still have no idea. And then you might start working. You do it for a while, and then you go, "Oh, no one told me about this." Like, how long do you think the struggling artist of a dancer is gonna be around for? Is that just how it is?
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, totally. I think everyone needs to have, no, I wouldn't say a backup, because sometimes people can go for years, like, but, and then there's other pathways within the industry too. Like, that is the most amazing thing. Like, if you feel like you've put all eggs in one basket, which I am one of those people. I am also luckily enough that I love choreographing and directing. I've also directed one of my own shows. I also have a love for now costuming, which is something I would love to go deeper in. So costume managing, but even to a point where I'm working on a sewing machine, to a point where I'm like, I could go deeper with just the tech side of things. I would love to do, you know, I've been able to stage manage some shows and some gigs, some big gigs. But even also to a point where I'm like, I would love to learn the lighting aspect of everything, you know? And so if you really are, like, for me, and this is my story, I think because I'm so heavily involved and there's so many times where I've had to kind of cross over and work with a lighting guy here, or I've got to work with a props person or whatnot, or even costuming. I've delved so much to a point where I'm like, this is another avenue that I could definitely go into, and I'm still within the industry. And I'm still a part of it. And I love that I can, you know, again, add more to my belt, but it's not physically using my body because, yes, my beautiful temple will have to stop physically moving at some point, and I won't be able to keep up with the younger generation, which I'm pretty much on that brink of, you know, coming to the end of that too. But yeah, I think everyone's got to have a side. Like I wouldn't always say put all your eggs in the basket into one basket. You should have a side thing of what's something else that sets your soul on fire, or what's a backup, or I feel like that is something that needs to be more implemented into full time as well, because it is such a hard industry coming as from a female, especially.
Yeah.
You know, there are more females. Like you know, gosh, those females.
Honestly, I was having this chat with Richie lately, and I was like, I could not imagine what it would be like to be a female dancer, you know, like, holy, the amount of competition that you guys have to go through. I just go, because me and him, like, we're aware. We're like, okay, yeah, you know, we're good, but like, imagine if there was like 100 of us that looked the same. Jeez, what the heck? No. It's like we know our place, you know, in the industry. And I think that's also that's the awareness as well of becoming like going, okay, so where's my point of difference? Okay, there's 100 of people that look like me. Okay, how can I still be authentically me, but now enhance on those things that separate me, that make me unique and as an individual, and let's really, like, you know, put all our eggs in our basket for that, so I stand out of all the rest. And a lot of it does have to do with your physical look, but even for you were like, well, I'm not the most flexible here, so I'm going to now start working on these other aspects of my dancing and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, does that kind of talk happen? Because I feel like that is so much more important. I honestly think that is like probably almost like 50% of the business, you know, like you.
Oh, so honestly, yep. I have so much more with that, with the business side of things. I feel like everyone's so focused on the choreo and the pickup and performing that they actually don't teach you how to be a professional on the other side, like emails and replying and getting back to people and just being that in itself. Like, oh my goodness, there are so many professionals that I probably will never book personally.
Yep.
Because they cannot get back. They can, like, I'm like, I wouldn't consider you a professional, because everyone's thinking of the, like, you know, the working hard, performing, getting on stage aspect. But if you can't even reply to an email or get a headshot or even confirm something, I'm like, you're not even a professional. What the heck? You know, and that goes with, go.
No, I feel so passionate about this because, like, I don't think people realize how important that first gig is. That first gig is everything. And in a lot of dancers' minds, and I used to see it happen all the time, right? It would be like, oh, there's a new face coming up. And it's kind of like, oh, exciting. You know, I wonder see how they're going to go. And I remember just doing jobs that weren't as big. Maybe they weren't, you know, it just wasn't a big production or whatever, but you're still doing it, and you're a pro, so you do the job right. And you kind of just looking and going, oh my goodness, like they're not going to last after this gig, because what happens immediately after it? You know, the agent calls or whoever, someone calls and chats, and they're like, oh, so how is such and such on the job or whatever? And it's like, well, you know, people want to know how are they professionally?
Yep.
Are they easy to work with? Are they likable?
Yes.
You know, it's not, did they dance well? Do they do it really well? It's all the other things.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I go, and I just, I used to see it a lot, and I just could be like, oh no, you know, like, you're not going about it the right way. So I just felt like I just wanted to say that just there.
No. That is the biggest thing that I've seen, where I'm like, there is a huge missing aspect in full-time schools, and whether there's certain schools are implementing it or trying to, the end of the day, it's who's posting this person's choreography and getting the likes and the comments. When I'm like, you can't just base your whole career on that. And also, you can also be a very nice, good person and a good human and be talented as well. You don't have to be one or the other. Like, I don't know why people think that because they're so talented that they can have an ego and just be nasty. And I'm like, don't. Why? Why?
Oh man, I so want to say something right now.
So it's the back. Yeah, it's the back end for me. Like, I have so much, like, and again, that's why I love teaching full-time students, because hopefully anything that I can spread, teach, share will give all my experience of the other side of being a professional, like of being a professional dancer, like just finishing the course and being great on stage and being the top of your class ain't got shit on you if you can't do the other things and hold yourself in a business sense.
There's so much I want to talk about this stuff. I think one thing that, though, I think is really, I think I brought this up at the very beginning, and I don't think dancers think about it from the long-term game, right? Look, let's just break it all. Let's just fundamentally, let's bring it right down. And I think it's just whether or not you're a good person and you respect other people in a professional setting. I think that's what it comes down to, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't understand that, then maybe there are some things that you might need to work on yourself personally, because when you start to think about it strategically from business, it's like, no, yeah, you can think about it like that, but I think you're missing the underlying thing is people want to work with you because we're going to be working with each other. We want to make this space fun. Right, we want people that we're going to enjoy our time with, and you know, when it comes to a production, it's all teamwork and all that. And I think, you know, I've noticed that it's funny that I taught you, you know, like, I think, you know, I don't know when it was, and then it's like you coming around and then you choreograph, and it's like, but like, it's like, imagine if I hope I was never nasty to you or anything like that, but.
No.
But you see it happen. You see it actually happen, though. When people hang around for long enough, now sometimes, you know, the boss or whoever that you got to be working for might have been that other dancer colleague that you were maybe not so nice to, and now they're in the audition or a panel. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's and people don't think about
absolutely
the whole big picture. Yeah. So,
and that's what I say, like, first and foremost, just be a good human, because that will get you so much further. If you're that person at the end helping pack up the tables and the chairs, or you're rocking up that extra bit early and saying, let's say someone's taping up the floor to set up the dimensions for this stage for a rehearsal, and you're that person there, those little things that you do make the biggest mark for someone to remember, to be like, I will drop your name and vouch for you all the time, you know, because they're going to be on time, they're professional, they're doing the job, they're a yes person, you know, over like, yes, you've got this really talented person, but they're always running late, they never reply, and they moan, and they're not really, you know, they just do the job, but they're not working with you as a team for this job. Like,
look,
yeah,
I feel a little bit in two minds sometimes about the business side of things. Like everything that we're saying, it's so true. It is so true. And
Yep,
it's like,
yep,
it
yep.
is like people, dancers need to know this, especially in full time, man. Like they got to know this stuff. They have to know how all of this works. I think, what I want to sort of touch upon is, and I don't know if you can feel, if you sort of could relate to this, is, it's been a bit of a pain point for me. And I think it's been a lot of the drive and reason to do what I'm currently doing at the moment is try to, solve a bit of a big, massive problem, but like pain challenge that I've faced was because there is such lack of work. I always felt like I had to say yes to everything, and that eventually led me to burning out, injury, also to just kind of like hating the job a bit because it just became about numbers. It just became about like, and nobody cared in the end of the day, really, when it came to, the business side of things from the production standpoint. It's just like, just dance, just keep dancing. Like, and that took a toll, and I started to fall out of love with it. And I now understand I don't ever want to like be saying yes to doing jobs based upon money. But at the same time too, we have to as well sometimes, and finding that balance of in between has been such a challenge. And I feel like I want to say sorry to to anyone out there in the past where like I know that I've been like a horrible human being on some jobs because I've came to like despise some of the, it's not even the job. It's just like, it's the fact that I've just like overworked, man. Like, and I didn't have any other, I didn't know any other thing. I didn't have any other way to like earn income. Like, you break into the industry and then you become successful. Then you start gigging and then you're like, awesome. And you start working. And then you look back and you're like, I've been doing this for like what? Professionally for over 5, 6, 7 years. And then when you think about, how do I earn an income some other way? It was just, for me, it was always that challenge, and it was easy for me to just like jump back into try and do some dance gigs and stuff like that. And so did you ever face any kind of challenge yourself in that sense when it came to, all right, this is a job, this is just money, I got to do the thing that I have to do, I got to give my artistic expression what I love, and I feel like I'm in some way, shape or form kind of selling myself a little bit here. Like, did you ever go through that, or did you never make those decisions in your career?
No, I definitely did. I had a contract that really broke me, and I'm not the kind of person to give up. And I've never gone, I think I'm going to go to the office and get them to send me home. I absolutely hated everything I was doing. Being in another country, my soul died. I actually can relate to you. I was a nasty person on my contract because I didn't recognize who I was because I was so unhappy. My attitude, my sleep was out. My body was warped. I was not the Anna. Like, I don't even recognize her. And she was a piece of work. Like, I was like, I'm sorry for everyone that had to deal with her during that time because I was so unhappy.
Yeah.
And I pushed through because I always want to finish a job to the very end. I also realized that I wasn't meant to do contracts. I realized I was probably very spoiled for 3 to 4 years before I got my first long overseas contract, because I'd had like overseas contracts, but like it may have been like I was over there for like 2 weeks or 1 week or whatnot, or gigs and whatnot. But I was I'm going to say spoiled, because I'm very grateful for it, that the company that I was with, every week I had a different job, a different gig. I was also the head choreographer for that company. So different gigs came in. I got to meet the clients. I mixed the music. I got to choose like my cast. Every week was a variety, and I loved it. And then I go into this contract where everyone talks about this is the pinnacle, you know, you're overseas, you're doing that job.
Yeah.
And you learn that choreography that is nowhere near anything as hard as you've ever done in your life. It's like, you know, the easiest thing you've ever done. You know, anywhere from 12 shows a week for 13 months. And I had no outside, you know, to put and I've realized I'm a different creative compared to other people. I have friends that are onto their 7th contract and they love it. I disliked it, and I had to do a long contract to realize that. I don't like contract work. You could not pay me that much money to do the same show every day for months. I just can't do it. It killed my soul, and I realized that. But I had to do it. I had to go through it to realize that.
It almost feels when it becomes that type of thing where it's either contract work or, you know, doing like, and I think that's why I love, you know, commercial gigs, was that a lot of it was one-off. I just love that energy of learning something new and just bang. It's like you got one shot to get it right.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a bit older, there's a bit of anxiety behind that now, but it's almost like there's two different types of dancers. Do you think that? Because I'm like, you're right. Some people love it, and I wish I was kind of wired more that way, because it's like that's where you can find stability is in those contracts.
Yeah.
But when you're not like that, you're like, oh, geez, this is a lot, man.
Yeah.
I
absolutely.
can totally relate. Yeah.
That moment in my career too, I was like, holy shit, Anna, you literally put all your eggs in that basket and you've really stuffed up now, because I was like, this is not what I want to do. But I realized I just needed to find a different pathway to do it. And then when I came home and I found, you know, and I didn't mind being in other countries, but and especially with the work not being as, you know, there's definitely not as much of a demand in Australia, but I found a way for me that suited me, that I loved everything they did, but there was still consistent work in it as well. And lucky enough, I love teaching. Like, I love it. I love teaching. I love teaching the next generation of dancers, which is probably why I keep going back to it, because they're the ones that hopefully that I can inspire, and that they're the ones that come back to be like, because I've had teachers, you know, you and I both highly talk about Madonna. I would love to be that person for someone that makes it in the industry and said, I had this different teacher that gave me this knowledge that no one else did, but supported me, but went through it, you know? Or she was the underdog or whatnot. But lucky enough that I do get the variety of gigs and I can direct and choreograph things, but at the same time, I still get to mentor and teach. So I happened to find my niche when I came home. But that's my story, because I know a lot of performers don't like teaching at all. They do it when they come home, you know, to get that little bit of money at their studio and whatnot, but not everyone is wired like that.
I wish I was more passionate about it. I really, yeah. I've gone through like many, I think, classes of teaching to sort of realize, this isn't something that comes natural to me. And I was doing it back in Sydney because I felt like that's the thing that you should be doing as dancers. You know, when you look around and everyone's thinking I should be doing that. But, you know, I'm never say never. Yeah. Like, who knows? Who knows? Maybe like in a few years' time, maybe I might be really drawn to it. So I don't want to like, you know, sell myself short. But I think when we talk about, man, the younger generation and hearing your story and hearing everyone's story for that matter, there's a way that you've gotten yourself here, and it goes right back to you being that kid going, well, I can't dance now or whatever, but I want to, so I'm going to go hand out flyers. Like that problem solving skill and that like sheer determination of like, no, this is exactly what I want to be doing. So there's no ifs, ands or buts. Let's just talk about how to figure out how to get through this. Right. And maybe maybe a lot of these dancers when they're younger and when they're going through full time and all that sort of stuff, maybe the reason why they're not as successful is because it might not mean that much to them. I'm not sure. I don't know. I really don't know because I haven't spoken to these kids before. But I'm like, if you really, really like, if you're just dying and desperately were like, no, this is my thing that I want to do. Maybe it's about them knowing how to. Do you reckon it's problem solving? Do you think it's about? Yeah, because I feel like it's always constantly you're hit with challenges all the time, and then if you kind of go, all right, this person said that I should do this or shouldn't do this, and you base upon their decisions and that, I feel like you're not going to, I guess, find like what success means to you, and maybe what do you see with these younger kids? Do they have that sort of mindset or of like problem solving skill or like that? You know what? I don't care what anybody else says. I know exactly what it is that I want to do. So let me try to figure that out. Like, do they know that by the time in full time? You hope that they do, right?
You do, and that's the thing. You want to hope they do, but I don't think they all. And everyone's upbringing is so different. Like, someone's trauma base could make them a better person, and someone's their trauma could really break them.
Yeah.
So it really depends on, I don't think I can say, oh, with all my full-time teaching, I've seen everyone really just get it.
Yeah.
And I can't even explain to you how and why I even thought like that as well. Like I just did. It was so. I've always just known that that's exact. Like, not just dance, but it's like if I wanted to do something, I did it. Like, there was no stopping me. I never questioned it. I just did it, which is wild because I'm like, I can't teach that. I might be in that category that I say that to someone and that doesn't relate to anyone, and they're like, well, how do you just do that? How do you just, I'm like, I don't, like, I'm not really helping. I'm not helping this conversation because I'm not really, I feel like adding to this, but I feel like some people do, but I don't think I'm in the studio and in the room long enough to get to know them one-on-one, especially when you start to become a needle in a haystack when I'm teaching a bulk.
Yeah.
And so this is where I've got to get through and so, yeah.
I think from what you just said, it's all, you're right. Like, everyone's so different, and it's about being able to maybe, if you don't have the ability to self-assess, I think that's what it is. Because, and that can be really confronting to have that honest conversation with yourself, to be like, all right, why am I not getting on that job? Like, to have it, like, try to really separate yourself and just to look at you as like as this, like, I don't want to say product, but go like, what is it about me that is not getting me there? Oh, okay, maybe, like, everybody is like, I'm just going to relate it to Magic Mike, for example.
Yeah.
You had to look jacked, and I think that's
you had to.
That's at the most
absolutely.
Because I saw so many dancers who are freaking talented, man, and I was like, yeah, they're gonna get it, and then they didn't, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then when you kind of see the cast, and then you sort of see, everyone is super talented, but it's like you still need to have that look. You have to be in shape like that, and if it doesn't. Oh, bro, like I used to have this conversation with some of these dancers, and I'll be like, look, when it comes to the Australian industry and the demand for it, it's unfortunate, but I think if you are more, I guess, like, I don't want to say like in shape. I don't know what the right word here is that I'm looking for, but like, as a guy, it opens you up to more job opportunities, and whether or not, if that's what you want to do, that's a different story, I think. But when I'm looking at it like consistent work, or if you want like dance to be your bread and butter sort of thing, I feel like you'd agree that you got to be versatile in what is it?
Yeah.
Your styles of dance, you know, like, you know, contemporary partnering, whatever it is, that is like, okay, you got to, right? You need to be versatile there.
Yeah.
But then with your look as well, I feel like you almost got to be versatile with your look here, because the jobs are so limited too. What are your thoughts on that? That's a bit of a touchy subject.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I'm going to continue with that, in a sense, with males as well. There has to be, like, if every dancer knows you're in this industry, everyone's going to look at you, and that's how your body, like, as much as it's like, oh, confidence and whatnot. Yes. But at the end of the day, a lot of the jobs are how you look. So you do have to be cutthroat within yourself.
Yeah.
If you're a male dancer and you look like a boy and you don't have that masculine look, I'm not saying all the gigs are like that.
No, I know. Yeah.
And you're like wondering why you're not, well, you've got to look at it. The guys that are putting on that muscle and taking care of their body and looking the part are going to get booked, because that is the look. That is the majority look for the men. Like, you can't be like, I've worked my ass off, but I'm not going to work. I'm not going to go to the gym, and I don't hold this masculine like look, or more of like a man, more of a man and not a boy, which is the transition for males when full time. It's like, you've got to transition from boy to man.
Yeah. And this, you know, you can sit there and complain about it and, you know, kick up a stink. In the end of the day, the industry isn't going to change for you. So it's going, all right, well, what changes do I need to make? And you can't fake strength. You know, like, strength is something like, you like as a guy, right? As a guy, you can't fake that when you're on stage without shirtless, or it doesn't even have to be shirtless. Sometimes you can be like tight fitting clothing, you know, to really, I guess, empower the masculine aspect of it, to really, harness that. The expression of that is going to come in ways that are going to be, you're going to look more muscular in that, and more stronger in your movements, and you just can't, no matter what you like, you want, how you feel and how you think about this, that industry, the supply and demand, that's what they're looking for. You can't talk yourself out of it. You can't think yourself out of it. You got to look like that, So
yeah.
How I feel about that doesn't have anything to do with it. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. That's just how it is, So
yes,
I wish they knew. I wish guys would know that a bit more, because, like, man, it would be so much easier for you. It would be as a dancer, it would be so much more easier for you, man. And but for females though, I think it's like, what's your take on it when it comes to females? I can only give really a male perspective on it.
No, I think the same. No, totally. I think it's the same. Like, we're athletes as well at the end of the day. Everyone has different body types, in a sense that you may have do the same workouts, eat the same as the female next to you, and your body looks different, but you still need to take care of what I always say, your temple. You're still a performer. Like, at the end of the day, performers on stage are these sparkly, like, for the muggles, I love calling it, like, I use the Harry Potter term for muggles, in the crowd watching you. You're this amazing performer that that's not who they are, and they love to just look at their costumes and their bodies, and they're ideally these, you're the entertainment. So of course there has to be that element for females too, that there has to talk about body image of, and I'm not talking about skinny, I'm talking about fit. I love changing that word to fit and strong, and not skinny. Like, we need to reword that.
For sure.
Because, that's what people want to see, like a strong man on stage. I mean, I know things are changing, but, majority of the time, if it's a man in a tux, or he's taking his shirt off, and then there's a girl in a bra and a high G situation, you want to see these fit, beautiful bodies, because you're this kind of fantasy, or this world that takes away, or is this, delicacy for a muggle person that's sitting in the crowd watching. You know, you've got to think of it from that point of view.
Yeah.
Not saying we're all just eye candy, but that's just part of the job. Like, if you're going into the industry, that's just part of it. You need to understand that. Yeah. And you're right. You can like moan and, no, I don't want to do that and I'm going to make a stand. Great. You can make the stand, but be prepared that, you know,
for sure,
you probably won't be booked as much.
Totally. And I think it's stepping out from that victimization, right? Like, if you don't want to fit into that industry, and you want to find more niche, you know, shows that aren't like based around that, that's fine. Like, that's awesome, and it's like that's I take my hat off to you if you know that within yourself. And I want to be careful as well. What I say is because all I know is the Australian industry, and perhaps, you know, there is so much more opportunity elsewhere outside. However, oh man, this is now I feel like I'm talking about, this is just me. This is just a personal thing right now that I'm talking about.
No. Let's go. Let's talk. Go.
But for me, I was like, when I realized, and I came off a cruise ship, I remember at the time, and I went into a job down in Sydney, and I won't mention the choreographers on it. I was already on the job, but when it came to costumes, they went down the line and they lifted up my shirt, I remember, and they were like, nah. As in, they were looking for someone to be the no-shirt guy on stage. And I'm just thinking, like, in my head, I'm going, I'm fit, right? I'm like, you know, I'm in shape. Like, I wasn't skinny. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't like overweight, nothing like that. I just was like, you know, I was just like, and I remember going, I was like, that's the standard. I went, for me to be that person. And I went, in that moment, I went, I don't want to miss out on an opportunity for work because I haven't taken care of myself in that way. Now, I know how much this can mess up your self-image, your confidence, and you know, just your overall, how you feel about yourself. So, and this is just a little bit of like how I've managed to get myself through this, is that I've always focused on health. And being a professional dancer like this, and coming back to it at this age as well, I was like, at least it's forcing me to have to look at what I eat from diet perspective. It's forcing me to be more more health conscious. And you know what, looking more in shape isn't a bad thing, but let's not go too crazy with it. I've gone to the crazy spectrum of it as well, where it's not good for my health. But I was like, every time I just go like, let's focus on my health. Let's focus on health. And, you know, I'm going to say it, for men, being under 15% body fat is what, from what I understand, is considered healthy for men. Women, it's a bit higher. But once you go over 15, like medically, they say that's not, you know, it's not healthy. So, and so like visually this as well, I was like, all right, well, maybe if I just keep under that. And then I thought that's like the best way for me to be able to get through the long term as a dancer, was just to focus on the health aspect of it all. And otherwise it can get a bit weird and nasty, and I don't know, it can mess with you. I think the Magic Mike kind of did in some level.
I can imagine.
It was a lot.
I can absolutely imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. And to go on with that, because not only when you hear females go through a lot of body image, and then whether they're puking up their guts or they go through maybe a disorder because of dance, I also want to voice that men can go through that too, which is something that doesn't get spoken about, because it's always like, you know, females, you know. And I really, look, I never actually went through anything like that. I never went through a stage where, I don't know, maybe I loved my food too much and I got to a point where I really don't care, because at the end of the day, I want to eat what I want to eat. Yeah. Not that I was overweight or anything. I was a very stocky, strong girl, so it was very easy for me. The more I danced, it kind of stayed off. So I was grateful in that sense of my body. But I'm actually going to be quite open with you right now. My journey regarding body image was, I was actually a flat-chested female, and I actually went into surgery to get boobs to fit into the industry. So that was my point. So instead of like losing weight or trying to fit the part, my body did all the things that I could do.
Wow.
I just didn't have boobs. And being a short girl, I always was like, I'm a 12-year-old girl. I look like a 12-year-old girl. I need to look like a woman. So how do I make myself do that? I went and got implants.
Wow.
And getting implants I got small implants to a point that my surgeon said, you could go bigger, Anna. And I said, no, I actually don't want to. I don't want to, because I want to be able to dance and I don't want this to completely throw me off. So I got implants and I got boobs to make me feel like a woman. And that, in a sense, gave me, like, if I was already confident, holy crap, did that give me more confidence, in a sense that I was like, I didn't care, because I'm like, now I feel like I've finished the piece of now making it into the industry. Yeah. Again, my journey is very different to everybody else's. Yeah. But yes, my last puzzle piece to being a professional was I needed to get boobs.
Wow.
To look like a woman.
Yeah, no, that's, I want to say that's very like, what's the word that I'm trying to look for? That is so awesome. Like, it's inspiring to hear you, I guess, go and sort of figure out the ways to be able to, you know, get yourself into that standard. And for you weighed it up and you're like, this is where I need to be. And this is, I'm aware that this is what's going to bring me confidence, and to be able to do all of that. And you went, this is what it takes. You know what I mean? Like you like, this is what I got to do what it takes. I've made those decisions myself as well. I have myself where I was like, I need to look this way. What can I do? How can I go about it? You know, so I even went to the
But
point
at the same time,
yeah. What's that?
At the same time, I think it's slightly fucked. Sorry, I'm going to say the F word. It's because we know the industry. We had to do those things to fit the part too.
Yeah, but
you know, but that's the game that you're playing. Like,
I don't think it's.
Yeah, go.
I don't think it's fucked.
Okay.
You're
okay.
Like, you're like, this is how it is. Like, okay, imagine this. Imagine if I was a model. If I wanted to be a model desperately, and it's like to be a catwalk model, runway model, whatever. You got to be this certain height. I'm not that height. Maybe I really want it. I just really want it so bad. And it's like, all right, I went and got the what do you got? Those little those surgery things.
The knee surgery. Yep.
Hey,
get to taller.
Like, you know, each to their own, man. Like, no judgment here.
Yep.
Like, you've gone. That's what I want, and that's what I want to do. And again, however much someone decides to do, that's their own journey. Nobody can sit here and say that's right or wrong ever. But I think in order to be successful, man, like to and however you define that, you got to make some kind of sacrifices somewhere. Like bro, for me, and this is, you know, this is more so recent years, I realized how much my drinking and partying, that lifestyle was holding me back from everything else. It's like I saw this other thing that I could do, and I was like, no matter how much I really wanted that, I wasn't able to take that path on, because there were other things in my life that were just not enabling it, you know. So I was like, I had to really take a deep look and be like, I can't keep doing this, you know. Or like, and this is going back to the whole body images of a dancer. It's like, if I want to be freaking jacked, if I wanted to do Magic Mike, I couldn't eat this. I couldn't at this certain time of the day. I couldn't eat that. I had to still fucking, after the show, I keep swearing, but after the show was finished, I had to go work out, you know, like,
wild.
It's wild, but like, that's what it took, because I wasn't going to get up there on stage and not, if everybody else is looking like that, no, I can't. Like, it's tricky, man. It is. I think there is so much behind being a dancer that we just the everyday people don't know about it, let alone if the dancers who are coming up as well. Like, they don't know about it either. And
Can I ask you something?
For sure.
If you had a second life and you knew this is how you did it, would you do this again?
I love that you're asking me
all
the
of
question.
this again.
This is so awesome because it's usually me asking the questions.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so,
I like asking performers and dancers this
awesome.
question.
So, sorry, could you repeat the question? If I had a second, if I got to do it all over again, is that what you mean?
Yeah, if you were reborn, like tomorrow, you started again at the peak of, let's say, 15, and you could start training from then or even younger, and you knew this was what you did, and if you even put more effort where you could get to, or if you're like, I've done that life, I think I'm going to choose another life, would you do it again, all over again?
Man, I think there's two parts to that question there, and you're getting me a bit emotional.
Okay.
You're getting me a bit emotional here, but I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything that I did in my professional sense.
Yeah.
The things that I could change that would have benefited my professional journey. And then I don't want to say is it because like I'm kind of getting back into it, are things that are out of my control.
Yeah.
There are things out of my control, and I would have never made the decisions. I know who I am, and I made decisions based upon things that happened outside of my life, outside of my professional world. To be specific, I hit a peak at 21. I got there. I remember I was on stage in Abu Dhabi with Kylie Minogue, and I was like, tens of thousands of people cheering, and I went, holy crap. I was like, I didn't think I was going to get there so soon. Like, I thought maybe it might take me a few years. It just freaking happened, man. And I went, whoa. Yeah. And then instantly I was like, well, what do I do next? And the checklist, so to speak, was like, go to America, go do it overseas, right? But this is where my whole, this is where like my side of this, like what was happening outside of the professional world was that, I had a family member that was unwell, and every year they would, I would have to drop everything, and I would have to take care of them. And that was an ongoing thing, like a yearly thing. So for me, the thought of moving overseas was out of the equation because I had to be there for that family member. Yeah. And I don't blame him at all. And I'm happy, and I'm happy for the choices that I made to stick around for that family member. But if that's what I mean. It's out of my control, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. If they were healthy and fine, then I think the natural progression was at 21, like 22 would have been like, well, let's freaking like let's keep growing on me as a dancer. Let's become better at dancing. Let's go overseas. Let's do these bigger jobs and all that kind of things. But but aside from that, like I would not have changed anything that I did. And the things that I could think about that I would have changed, they all stem from that. So that's out of my control, man. Yeah, I hope that answered it. That answered that question.
Yeah. No. It did.
Yeah. But hey, they're all fine now, which is kind of why I feel like I've still got maybe a few years left in me. So I was like, this thing that I wanted to do of doing overseas, let's see. We'll just see what happens. Like maybe it might not, it might work, it might not work, but I think I realized I owe it to myself, when I was injured and just recently, and I couldn't get out of bed, and I thought I had retired. I told my insurance company that because I was on work cover, and I told him I was like, hey, I can't get out of bed anymore. I can't move anymore. I know we've been trying to do this rehab thing for the last 2 years. I can't move. I'm like, I think I've given it a really good crack of trying to get back onto stage. And I was like, I've retired. And they were like, well, let's get you in touch with a sports psychologist. And I was like, yeah, sure thing, whatever, they're paying for it anyway. So I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I've walked into this room and I've seen Olympian athletes all up on the wall, and I was like, oh, it clicked. I was like, I get it. Like, Olympians, they go through this whole thing of like, once they retire, like
Yeah.
it must be so difficult. So I've walked in there going, I'm ready. I know what to talk about. I'm going through a grieving process of me not being able to dance again. I'm pretty depressed. I'm quite sad, but I'm coming to terms with having to retire. We all go through it at some point. And I've sat there, and within 30 minutes, man, this freaking, I shouldn't say bastard, but he dug it out of me. He dug it out of me so deep, and I was like, screw you. And he got me in touch with what was actually happening inside of me. And the reason why I felt this way was because I thought that there is actually a chance. There is actually a tiny possibility, even though I couldn't walk, that I might be able to do this thing. And I went, I hate you so much. And I spoke to my girlfriend. I'm like, okay, we're going to London. I have to do it. And she's like, you can't walk right now. But I know, but it's because there's a chance that I might. And I went, I can't deny those feelings anymore. And if I continued like that, I would have been a miserable, horrible, depressed human being. And that doesn't do good for anyone around me. So that's when I was like, oh, all right, then fine, far out. So I'm here now. But I think we need people like that on that level to be able to talk to dancers at any stage of their career, at any stage of their life, whether it's like whether it's like, from a physical aspect to, mental challenges that we go through with anxiety and body images and all that kind of thing, man. Like we go through, I feel like a lot of it, And I think we were getting kind of a little bit, how are you doing for time? Because I can.
Yeah, no, fine.
I can rant on forever, but
no, that's totally fine. No, I'm good.
I think now that I just started tapping into that space, man, of of retirement. How do you deal with
Yeah.
that? You can ask me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, are you, like you said, you're getting back into it. So are you dabbling? Because I feel like that's where I'm at in my career too.
Yeah.
I'm tapping out, but there's still things that I'm still performing and doing. So I'm like, I'm on my way out. But then I don't, like, I haven't called it yet because I'm like, no, I've still got this. But I think I'm just choosing also the jobs that I want to do as well. Like, what's worth my energy going into it too. But yeah, let's like, are you on your way out, or are you going back in the game? Like, where are you mentally?
Mentally, so I just got back into London yesterday, and I had to be in Albania for 3 weeks because of visa processing issues. I got here about a year ago, but my visas kept falling through because you need very specific documentation. And then luckily from January this year, they extended the youth mobility visa to the ages of 35. I'm 34 now. So like I've just made that cutoff date, and I had to leave London to apply for this visa so I can dance. I came here for my dancing. So now I got here yesterday. Yep. Now I've got a visa, so I can actually work now. Because in my mind, I thought I'll come to London, I'll get an agent, I'll go for an audition, I'll get a job, then I get a visa. And it doesn't work like that. I should have probably done my due diligence, but it turns out that you need a visa first before they send you out for audition. So where I am at mentally is jumping back into it. And for me personally,
cool.
It's all about a balance of how my body is. It's a game. It's a fine line of what I want is I want to go for the jobs that inspire me, and I want to do bigger things. However, I'm always limited by this injury that I've been carrying now. So as much as I want to, I need to listen to my bodies, and that's been a huge challenge. But I've come to accept it and been like, okay, well, if I try to push and my back is completely thrown out and I'm just in crippling pain again, then it's like maybe we should just sort of taper back and tried doing some other areas of dance, but I don't want to fall into that whole space of I'm dancing just to do gigs so I can earn an income thing. I don't want to do that. So really, I got to really kind of push it to that level of athleticism again. But yeah, it all just depends on it all just depends on how much my body holds up and how the rehab goes. But Anna, also too, my freaking that part of your brain that picks up choreography as well. Oh man, like
it's slower, isn't it?
I used to be really good, and then it got really bad. And it's getting better, but it's not freaking where I want it to be.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So that's where I'm at. With
totally.
But I get how you feel when you're like, you kind of want to feel like you want to get back into it, and you're like, you tell yourself, you got this, but I've been telling myself I've got this for a while, and I'm like, actually, I don't know if I've got this. Then I'm like, far out. Like I've come this far. I can't wuss out now, but I'm terrified. I'm gonna be honest. I'm so scared. I'm so scared, but whatever, man. Like I got to do it. I got to do it.
Oh, but you openly saying that, like, I'm already so, like, whether you're openly going to like post about your journey, I'm going to be in your corner. Like, I'm so excited to see where, like, our chat could happen in 6 months. Our chat could happen in another 4 years. And I'm excited to see wherever that may be. And that doesn't mean, like, again, like you said earlier in the conversation, everyone's success is different, you know? Yours might be like, I'm just getting my body moving again, and I got a few gigs, but I know that this is me, I don't know, tapping out, but my body's feeling stronger than what it was, you know? That's your success. That could be your success, you know? It's just that reminder that we don't bounce back. Our bodies don't. Like, you know, I went through an injury too. So that's why I'm on the brink of, do I go back? And I'm like, look, I'm getting asked to do shows and gigs and whatnot. And I'm like, well, if I'm going in for things and they're ones that I want, I'll do them. But I know that there's definitely other capable people that could do the job too, you know? So, I'm in a happy place where I can just pick and choose. And at the end of the day, as long as it's a yes, I love what I'm doing, and they're the things that all the people I want to work with, great. That makes me happy, and that's why, I've chosen my journey, and I'm very specific, and I love everything that I've done.
Gotcha. So do you, when it comes to, so the reason why I called this podcast The Dancer Dies Twice is about, like, you know, Martha Graham talking about the identity of a dancer, and, you know, our performing years coming to an end, and we have to sort of like face that and possibly, you know, pick up new identities at an earlier life than most, sort of thing. So touching upon that, like, identity, and also too maybe just like not like being on stage at that caliber anymore. How do you go about it? Is it something that you know that brings you a bit of like sadness, or you kind of like so focused in this other new areas of your life where it's kind of like, I don't really have time to be sad about it, or like, I don't know. Do you mind just sort of kind of talking about the space of that?
To be honest, that my identity died quite earlier for me. At 24, I fell pregnant. So for a dancer's career, that is very early to pretty much what I thought was hanging up the shoes. So I fell pregnant, and I raised my son by myself for the first year. And from there, I had a lot of my own personal work that I had to go through. I had moments where I was like, that's okay, I'm going to get back into it, and I'll try to get contracts, and I'll travel with my son, and he's going to be that kid that's backstage while I'm quickly on stage, and then I'm going to go off like this unrealistic kind of thing. I know there are people doing that. But then that really changes. Kids really change you. So my identity and who I was stopped. It finished at 24. And so I had to reinvent myself after I gave birth and came back into the scene, because I had to go through a year where everyone would automatically put me in, she's retired because she's a mum. I was like, hang on a second. Like, I'm going to give a different name for mums here, because there are a lot of young mums in the industry that are still working and that can still parent. And so I reinvented myself in a way that I was like, just because I have a son, I am still going to be doing these gigs. And so, yes, I pushed myself back in the game. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a very supportive family to take care of my son at that time. Some people just don't have that family support, so they can't just drop everything and go and do things. Lucky for me, I did. But yes, I had to reinvent myself and put my foot down to say, just because I now am suddenly a mum in this group of people getting booked, that doesn't mean that I'm not in, or I cannot be booked because I'm a mum. It was weird. It was like, suddenly you're a mum and people don't want to book you anymore. I was like,
Really?
what is this shit? Like,
Wow.
Yeah. And for me, that was a whole different thing. So I had to reinvent myself again at what? I don't know, 26, 27 when I was coming back into it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so that in itself, I feel like I've had two lives. It's weird. Two dancing lives. And two different people, because becoming a mum taught me so much that I felt like I was a completely different person coming back in the game. I was actually more confident. I respected, and I was more, not only respected, but I cared for women so much more, because I just was like, oh my gosh, the shit we have to go through, our bodies and stuff. Like, I looked at bodies in a whole different way, because like my body had stretched in places that it's not going to come back. You know, I was up against younger females when my body had stretched to hold a baby, you know? So there was so much that I had to do and reinvent and teach myself. But I was only back in the game for a little bit. And then I realized COVID hit, and then I really went more into directing, and choreographing, because lucky enough, I had a really big love for that as well. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely am on the end of retiring. I'm just lucky enough that the things I am a part of are like right now I'm part of a comedy burlesque show. So I get to be really dorky and exactly who I am on stage, and I don't need to be this perfect person, you know? So there are opportunities that I still get to perform and still get that high, that, you know, amazing high to be on stage performing. But I'm not doing those things when what I did when I was in my early 20s. So I'm definitely on the retirement side of things. But lucky enough, I had two lives in dance, really. For me, well, that's how I see it. I'm grateful that I had two lives and two different views on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're still getting a bit of that fulfillment right now by doing, you know, because because you're doing other shows and stuff like that. So I totally get that, and going through, reinventing yourself like that too. At that age as well. That's awesome.
I mean, with that, I not only as just like a dancer was just one side of myself, but I had to obviously I went through a lot being a single mum and having to raise a son by myself, but I had to look at myself, like I had to do so much work personally that it kind of bled into my dance, which helped me, which made me even stronger and better. Like,
wow,
as shit as it was, I am so grateful for what I went through, because I appreciated so much more. It made me not only be a mother, but I wanted to be a better mentor for students. Like my mother, I wanted to be that caring kind of mother for students, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So,
man, that's awesome. How
the best thing.
It's just, it came into your dancing, all these other aspects, and I think that's so true, isn't it? It's like we're not just one dimensional like that. There's so much happening outside, and for that to come through like that, and then now, you know, enhance you as a performer, man, that's awesome. So no feelings of like, I guess, having to eventually come to part with all of that, or do you think that like going into the future, you might end up still just being able to feed and fuel that part of your, I guess, performer, you know, in you as you go on in life, or who knows, maybe.
No, absolutely. No, I am so, let's say if I got a really bad injury and I had to stop, I am so fulfilled with my dance career
Yeah.
that I would be happy right now if it had to end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much heavily still involved in it in so many other aspects, like I said earlier, regarding directing and choreographing, and when it comes to costuming and everything.
Gotcha.
I've opened up my own entertainment company. So I do a lot of bookings for entertainment and putting things to, like, any events and whatnot. So I'm so heavily involved that if I really could not use my body tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so fulfilled, and me retiring, like if I had to, I'd be okay with it. I think there'll still be a few years. I'm still getting back up on stage this year, which I'm really excited for. But it's not me like hustling for it. I don't
For
need to
sure.
hustle
For
for it.
sure.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
but
get that.
no, yeah,
I'm gonna miss it straight up. Like
yeah,
I'm gonna, yeah.
yeah,
It's like even if I'm a grandpa, I can see myself loving it still and dancing on the street or whatever when I just feel, compelled to dance because I hear some music, and that still fuels my soul. But I think to be able to perform and use my body to this caliber, I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that looking back, and I'll
yeah,
always miss it. I always look back and be like, oh,
yeah,
just thinking about like every ounce of my being, just being
yeah,
exerted to that physical level. I think is something that I'll definitely always miss. And some dancers I've spoken to that they're like, nah, they're like I've done it. Like I know because I've tried to
yeah,
seek some closure with this with some of my other mentors in dance, but they were just like, no, they're like straight up like that. I didn't miss it, nothing. I'm like, what? I'm like, how?
yeah,
I'm like, how? I don't know if
yeah,
they're just that's
yeah,
just what they're saying, but
yeah.
I
I don't think you'll ever, like, even when you get old, you could go to, like, a market or the shops and they're playing a really good tune. You'd still always dance. That's the thing. It's not like it's forever gone. I
no,
understand that the feeling of being on stage and actually performing. I think
yeah,
if you lived your life 100% and you soak up those moments, and I mean really soak them up,
yeah,
they'll never, like, I'll never forget that. Like, I'll,
mm,
like, of course I'd miss it, but I don't think I'd be grateful and glad that I lived my life and all my performing and soaked it up to 100%, that I'm like, I can look back on this. I can tell my grandkids and stuff to be like, how amazing of a life that I lived to do this.
mm-hmm,
Not many people can say they back up dance this person in this country. Like,
mm-hmm.
no one can ever, you could explain it, but no one could ever live it like the way you did. So,
No, no, it is very
yeah.
different. Um, But I think Pat Cuo actually said this, and I loved his whole perspective on it. He said that it was like he saw it as like it was a bonus, as in like he was like we got to have this little extra thing in life that not everybody has, and he is like it's a little bonus
Yep.
thing. And I'm like,
Yep.
oh man, that when you see it like that, I was like, whoa, okay, wow,
Yeah.
that is definitely
Yeah.
another way to seeing it that I think I want to be able to maybe implement it a bit more in my life. But I think we're now kind of coming to the tail end of the pod, and usually at this
Yep.
part, I love to just get to know, any kind of words of wisdom that could be. It could be the directed towards upcoming gen of dancers right now, or it could just be kind of like a message to your younger self as well. If any kind of wisdom, there's something that really stands out, in relation to a performer right now that you may want
Oh
to
my goodness.
sort of
Oh my gosh.
there's a lot. There's a lot, isn't there?
There's a lot. Oh my gosh.
Maybe in relation
Oh,
to your success and how you have found your version of success.
yeah.
And the way that you've gotten here, if there was
Yeah.
some guiding kind of like words to be able to get, a bit of insight or whatever. It doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be too deep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I mean, if I had to talk to my younger self, I think I mean, everyone would say, but I would say I'm super proud of the person that I am and where I got to. But I think my younger self would know that. And I know that sounds so crazy, but and I said it before, I really just knew exactly, and I still do in every aspect of my life. I've always just like, I've never been peer pressured. If I want something and I'm so hungry for it, I'd get it. I'd do it. So I'm just proud of me just staying on in my lane and continue going into that journey. I feel like if anyone else is struggling and they're not sure, at the end of the day, if they're not sure if anyone has their back, as long as they can be that bigger person and support themselves. I mean, that's such a hard thing to even say to people. Yeah, you've got to believe in what you're doing before anyone else does. Like, it's good and all to have your mum and dad be like, you got this. But if you don't in your gut fully have your own back, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. For me, that's the only thing that I feel like the only person I relied on was myself. At the end of the day, it was me. Only me. I'm not going to, I have no one else to hold my hand. You know, you may have your best friend doing full-time with, but you're not going to do life with them. You know, you're not going to get every job together. I'm like, if you've got to back yourself, you've got to completely believe and back yourself. And you get to choose that. You get to choose that life, you know? So, yeah, that's my biggest thing. But I feel like it's not as inspirational or anything.
No, I think that's like what you said is super, super important. And it's something that has actually come into my own little, world recently that I picked up on is like, to actually believe in yourself first. I think everything stems from there. Like, because I don't think you can't get anywhere if you don't believe that you can do it.
Yep.
I don't. Yeah. So no, I think that's like that's some gold right there. So, yeah, it's awesome. But hey, I want to say, like, this has been so awesome just to be able to, like, chat like this. I love getting to know people like this. And I want to say, like, thank you so much again for coming on board. I think...
No, thank you.
There's so much that you've just shared with, and, I want to say thank you again. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna press stop right now, and I'll see you on the other side.
Sure.
Anyways, thank you so much for
Perfect.
coming aboard. I'll see you on the
Thanks, Chris.
All right, see ya.
Yep.
All right, bye.
Bye.